All right, guys. Good morning. How are y'all doing today? All right. So, today we're going to talk about a little bit on how to understand some of the biome, the current biome system in the program, on how it works, how the procedural pieces, and try and figure out how we can apply that to our landscape. Of course, we have the global biome settings and we have a separate sub-biome setting. So, some people have been asking me exactly how to use this. So, today I thought we would just go through the process of going through some of these settings, how it could apply to our terrain. Hopefully, we find a good procedural sort of seed that works well, because right now you can't, which is really unfortunate. You can't. Let me turn this down a tad. You can't sort of paint in your custom biome yet. Yet is a big term because it's going to happen to where each one of these layers of biomes we're able to just paint in and mask in exactly where we want, as well as a couple new other features, which I'll talk about in just a little bit. Before we would continue on with diving into all these biome settings, is there any questions on what we've talked about in previous episodes or things that you've just pondered based on the terrain that we've been working with? I immediately see that there are some new texturing locations that I want to change here, but I'll do that in more of a chill sort of stream that could last a while. Today is going to be more of sort of a guide slash tutorial to kind of help you out with biomes. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into the first sort of set of biomes. And to do that, or to illustrate this so that's pretty smooth for you guys, I'm going to start a new project up here on the top right. Going to say no there. All right, so we have a brand new project here. And let me just go ahead and change my lighting direction just a little bit. Okay, so we have a new project here. And so we're going to talk about this biome list. So we have the global biome, and that's obviously the main parent biome for the whole session. And in this biome, we can specify what its meters are, or precision is based off meters. So I've got that set to 1/4 of a meter. And of course, the global seeds can let you do seed values, whatever you want. I think I'm just going to stick with, maybe we can just do this. Nothing biggie. All right. So now if we have the global biome here selected, we get all these different settings. And we've gone over some of what these top settings are, and inherent filters, operations, override. Those are the really important ones. We'll cover how these are set up a little bit later, but noise height, we could change the sort of range that all the noise offsets are, or noise strengths for that range, as well as being able to control individually what each one of these strength levels are per precision level, if that makes sense. But what we want to talk about really with biomes is from biome C down, these last few settings here. And what exactly are these? Well, these are sort of the controls for the sort of algorithm for how all of the biomes are basically going to be masked in and generated. It's all procedural. These are all the procedural settings to get it to do whatever it is you want to do. I'm going to go ahead and add a biome here so that we can have some comparison and contracting values here. So I've added a biome. Now, right off, you're like, well, okay, where exactly does this second biome occur here on the landscape? Click this little icon here, which is the biome icon. You can see exactly what color based on the biome that is being affected. Right now, the second biome, the child biome, is taking control of the entire landscape. And we know that because it matches this color. So this biome color matches this biome. If we were to hide this and then select global, global is this yellow color. You see it's taking up the entire landscape now because the second biome is hidden. So how do we control how much we want the global to take over? Well, there's two different ways we can do that. The way we did it in our previous project is for this second biome, if the operation here is set to add, and then if the inherent filters are set to on, and if we go to the custom base shape, click create and flatten the base, the shape for the second biome here, then this second biome and this global biome are identical in this case. So there's nothing going to be the difference between these two because we're adding to that operation and we're inheriting the filters. If we didn't click inherit filters here, then whatever filters we applied here in the second biome are going to be predominantly only for the second biome, and whatever filters we put here in the global biome are going to be only seen in the global biome. So if you're wanting to, like we did with the main project that we're working on, is use a biome specifically for just pasting in a map tiler height map, or if you're wanting to paste in a height map of your own, or if you're wanting to use a second biome, which is what we've talked about in many other sessions, using a second biome or third biome strictly for different levels of sculpting precision. And by that, I mean one biome you can sculpt based on this sort of subdivision level. And on a different biome, you can sculpt based on this subdivision level. And you're using those sub-biomes purely for those, procedures. And you use the parent biome, or in this case, the global biome, for all of your texturing and filters and whatnot, all your effects. But in this case, let's say that we don't want to do that. Let's say we want this to be its own thing entirely. And let's go back to custom base shape and just reset this back to its default values. All right, so we want the second biome to have its own area, and we want the global biome to have its own area. Well, let's go ahead and to exemplify this a bit further, let's add another biome. Oh, and you can instantly see here, well, you can tell the difference between the two biomes here. Pink here is for the pink biome, and blue here is for the blue biome. You can see that both of the blue and pink biome are both equal child actors of the global biome. If I take this second biome and hover it to be a child actor of the blue biome, you see that the pink biome is now the dominant one because it's the last one in this layer sequence to have the operation of overwrite. If we add here and we add here, then both of these biomes are just going to be in addition to the parent biome. Let's go ahead and add overwrite here, and let's go ahead and move this. You can see that little white bar underneath the blue layer appears for me to put it in an equal sequence. All right, so the reason why we can see the different colors here is because I have global selected. If you have the second biome selected, you're only going to see the second biome. If I have the third biome selected, you're only going to see the third biome. As far as this little button here in the vertical toolbar in the bottom right will let you see that. So let's go back to the global biome here. And let's go ahead and say reset this. And reset, make those are okay. All right. Hope that's making sense so far, but the real kicker is what we're going to be doing down here in the bottom. So let's actually make this a bit cleaner. Here we go. Yeah, I didn't want the effects to kind of happen here. All right, so in this case, sorry to have moved that around for you. How do we change sort of, remember, all what we're doing here is all procedural. So exactly how do we change where this line is between the green and blue biome? Well, in the parent biome, or whatever the parent biome is, you can control that seed level or those levels in general. So, for one example, in the global biome here, since the green and blue biomes are both equal child actors, we can change this biome seed and it'll change what these, a random value of where those are being masked in. I actually think this one's kind of nice. All right. And you can click random. It's just the same way with the seed level for the generation tools. It all makes the same sense. So that's one way that you can change it. Another way is this cluster seed. So this cluster is sort of the amount that this is going to be sort of cut up. So if we were to increase this, you can see these biomes are being split up quite drastically. And imagine each of these are a different sort of filter level and material levels. And you're getting a pretty wacky looking terrain. Let's go ahead and create this back down to 0. Now, grid level is how it's that those clusters, as well as the noise strength and noise scale sliders here. It's basically sort of the overall scale of the effect. If I were to decrease this now, you can see it's a little tiny. Or if I increase this, you can see some of the detail around the rim is getting a little bit more fine-tuned or rough based off these noise and strength scale sliders. Let's go ahead and crank grid scale back to somewhere where it was. And let's increase cluster somewhere around midway. Now, if we were to increase or decrease the grid scale slider, you can see the sort of general bulk or main shape of that cluster is still there, but the amount of detail that it is being distributed on is kind of being stretched out in wild ways. So the grid scale is, think of grid scale just almost like you are adding subdivisions to the seed value of what's being displayed on the terrain. Crank these back down to their defaults. Background 25. All right. So noise strength and noise scale is obviously going to determine sort of the noise values between the two biomes. So if I lower the strength, it's going to get quite blocky looking. If I increase the noise strength, it obviously breaks up that edge even more. Now, if I were to change the scale of that, obviously, if I lower the scale, it's going to lower the scale of the whole effect, or increase the noise scale, it'll increase it. Same way, if the noise scale is fully at 1 and we lower the noise strength to 0, it's not much different from whenever nothing is going to be changed on the scale. If I increase the strength all the way up and then change and mess with the scale, you can see that noise is moving quite drastically. So this is just all procedural sliders to kind of get the effect that you're truly after. So let's still stick it somewhere around here so it's easy to see. All right. Here's where sort of the next values make a big difference on how you get to control what's being applied to the global biome as opposed to the green and blue biomes. The sub-biome percentage. So this you'll be able to see in both of these biomes here. You can see the sub-biome percentage in both of the child biomes. They're not going to do anything because this sub-biome percentage it's only going to work whenever you have child actors. So this sub-biome percentage is sort of the global value between all of our child biomes here on how much we want them to appear on the terrain. So in order to get the global biome to appear on the terrain, because you can see the global biome is not appearing anywhere on here because the two child actors or the two child biomes are overriding the global. You can see they're both set with the operation of overwrite. So with the global biome selected, if I were to decrease the biome percentage here, it's going to reduce the amount of how much the two child actors or child biomes are coming in. You can see At some point, the yellow pops in for the global biome, and it's reduced sort of where the two child biomes are coming in. So the more I increase that, or more I decrease this, the more the global biome comes in and the two child biomes are popped in somewhere. Let's change the parent biome's color to something that's a bit easier to see. Red. There we go. So that you can see this value here. If I increase it, it adds more of the percentage back to the child biomes. If I decrease it, it adds more of the procedural percentage back to the parent biomes. Let's do this for now. All right. So say if the blue biome here was within the green biome. Well, the sub percentage here is only going to control the values that appear between the immediate child actor. So you can see that the red is the global and the green is the second actor. And we've lost the additional percentage control for the third biome. So how do we control the blue biome? Well, we go to the next actor here. So the second biome is going to be the control of where the blue biome is going to appear. So if we reduce this sub-biome percentage, you can see within the second biome, we get the sort of values of where the green is going to come in. Now, this may look pretty weird, but one cool thing is since the blue biome is a child actor of the green biome, we can control a different biome seed value within the green biome for the blue biome. So within this biome seed here, we can change the seed value independently for what this is going to be. So I can decrease this a bit more. And let's go to something about right there. So now that is sort of a completely new way of controlling the biomes. Again, this is all the procedural method of doing this. So it'll be a little bit more intuitive later on. Set that back to 1. All right. So now I've got both. I've reset these to be where they were before I showcased that sort of example. So let's go back to this look that we had before. All right. So we get that the sub-biome percentage will control the placement of how the sub-biome is going to appear on the terrain. So how do we control this sort of fall off between the different biomes? Right now you can see it's pretty sharp. Well, this is going to come down to the next few sections here. I'm hoping that at some point we can name each of these biomes. So like global, it makes sense for it to be global. And for the second biome, there should be somewhere, I hope later on, we can name this whatever we want and name this biome whatever we want. So by naming these two biomes in a future date, we'll be able to see the names of those two biomes here. So this percentage slider and this blend range slider here are the adjustments for the green biome. The lower percentage and the lower blend range sliders here are for the blue biome. It's not really intuitive on knowing that unless you just mess with it and figure it out. But if I were to drag the blue biome back to the green biome, you see now in the global slider, we only have 1 percentage and blend range options. And that's because we've removed a child actor to another location. So let's move this back. Okay. So if I were to decrease or increase the percentage value of the green slider, you see this is sort of another control of, hey, I want the the green biome to be a little bit less. So I'm going to reduce it just a little bit. And that's, again, controlling its very specific percentage. And remember, the sub-biome percentage is the global value that affects both biome percentages. So we can affect the blue biome here as well. So by increasing or decreasing the blue biome, we can see we are increasing or reducing its effect. Same thing for the green biome. We are increasing or decreasing the effect of the green biome. But again, the sub-biome here is the master control for both of the sub-biomes, which allows the global biome to come in. All right, so now let's get on to finally talking about the sort of blend range, which obviously you see is the amount slider here. So if we were to adjust the blend range for the green biome, we can feather this out any way we want. So if I were to decrease this, you can see that it is going in on itself. If I were to increase the green biome, you can see it's blending into the red biome here. Let's go ahead and move this out. You can see, and I'm now controlling that sort of blend range. If I were to decrease this a bit more, I am now making sure that the red biome is blending in into the green biome here in a really strange way. And if I were to say I want to now make the red to blue range a bit more smooth, I can either move this slider up and down together, both ranges, to control where I want that fall off to occur. So let's say we want it somewhere right here at the edge. If I were to increase this value, let's see where, let's go the other direction. Let's lower that value a bit. And you can now see that red has now bleeded into blue and blue has now bleeded some into red, and it's created purple, just like these guys have created almost orangey yellow color here. So this is one way that we can control that sort of blend range between the different biomes. And sometimes you want that to be really sharp, so you'll make the values stick together, and you can move it dynamically. Say I want it up here, and then I want that range to kind of bleed in. So it'll start bleeding in, and you can control that bleed range amount. All right, is this all sort of making sense so far? I hope I'm making sense to you guys. Let's, for fun, go to the green biome and add a sub-biome to it. So we now have, let's make this color a wild purple. All right, so now we don't see that purple here because we only have the global selected. If I were to select the green, we can see that we're now we want to change the pink biome within the parent biome. So let's reduce this amount here a little bit. Actually, that's what I wanted right there. Let's blur this range up. So now this pink is going to be still within the bounds of the green that we've established in here. You don't see it yet unless I've changed that color. Is it the same for a height map in the first biome? Is the process sort of like the same for if I were to apply a height map to global, for example? Is that the same? If I were to keep adding biomes here, is it going to work the same as far as overriding or the blending operations? If that is your answer, then yes. So keep that in mind. So say, let's hide these here real quick. All right, let's say for the global biome here, let's just go ahead and choose something from Map Tiler. Let's go to somewhere right here in the Caribbean. All right. All right, now let's go to create custom base shape, use Map Tiler, increase the subdivisions. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So yes, say you've got now the global biome is the main height map. Okay, so if I were to now add a second biome, You see the second biome with its operation set to overwrite will completely remove whatever the first biome, the global biome. But for the global biome, let's go ahead and just reduce. If we were to reduce the sub-biome percentage all the way to 0, you see we're bringing back the parent biome. But if we increase this sum, the green is going to start coming in. Actually, we want to see all of these together. So with all the biomes together, you see that the parent biome is still there in red, but the other biomes are coming in and making a pretty drastic effect on it. So if you're wanting to use the other biomes to not do this, but you're wanting to use them straight for filtering, then we need to make sure that instead of overwrite, we go to add for each of the sub-biomes in operation. So now the sort of procedural terrain for each of these sub-biomes here are going to add on top of the global biome here. Then if we were to go to each sub-biome and flatten each one of these, so create base shape, flatten, second biome, create base shape, flatten. Then you see that we've got the biomes, but now we've inherited the sort of nature of the main terrain here. So now we could use the biome structure here if you want strictly for filters or for different filters to affect this height map, or strictly for different textures to affect to affect this height map. So it all makes a big difference on sort of how you set up each biome. So again, each biome, if you're wanting to add on top of the previous, the operation needs to be add. And then if you're wanting to not affect the physical terrain with the sort of starting, terrain values, then the custom base shape should just be flattened. I think by default, which I think is going to be the case, is by default, the custom base shape is always going to start out as flattened, so that when you add something, it's not going to break what you're doing. And if you're wanting to then go through and customize the shape, then you can say, hey, I want to reset this back to its original value, or flatten it, or whatever you want. I hope that makes some sense. All right, so see, in this case, let's go to the blue biome and select overwrite. So since I'm overwriting it, you can see now that overwrite has made it super flat. It's almost like we're reshaping the landscape to be where the blue biome is. So wherever the blue biome is, it's said we want the water to be. So let's increase this percentage of the blue biome to be, let's do it right here. And what about the green percentage? Where do we want that? All right, so in this case, we're making sure that the blue biome here is set to a pretty high percentage since we've flattened it. And the reason why we flattened it, again, is because it's the custom base shape and we've flattened it. We could, if we want, go through over here and increase that. So we've manipulated just the blue biome. This is a good example. So here we see the boundary of the blue biome. If I were to go all the way across here, and let's scroll them up and then increase this up, you see that increasing is going to only happen where it's masked in blue. It makes perfect and complete sense. So this is another way that we can go through and customize the terrain. Now, keep in mind that if we were to go through here and then increase this drastically, it may not do anything right now, but do keep in mind that the software is going to remember that you've increased that spot 148 meters. So if I go up here and increase my blue percentage even more, and let's increase the sub-biomes altogether, you see, look, it's remembered that I've increased this location in blue 148 meters based on what I did in the blue biome, even though we were painting in the black area that was unmasked. So keep in mind of where you do paint, because it will make a difference in the long run. I actually don't mind this sort of shape now that we've kind of started making a weird little island here. All right, so let's say for the green biome here, the green biome again, is really wacky because it's two different biomes. But let's change the seed for the pink biome. Let's see. That seems fine. If I want that biome to all be pink, or if I want it to all be green, somewhere right there is fine. All right, so let's take the green biome. See if we increase that green biome just a touch. All right, and the sub-biome percentage. I think that's fine. Okay. So now we're making sort of a water thing here. So let's go, and why not? Let's go ahead and select all the blue and lower it down a bit. Select all the blue edge here. Lower down a bit. So now all I'm doing here is lowering the shelf a little bit. And let's try and get the water to match up where our blue is. So let's enable water. Water is really high right now. There we go. We were making sure that water is now even with our blue level. All right, that just gets the idea of what we're after. And I hope that makes sense on how we can adjust the different biomes. So hopefully at some point, each of the biomes will have their own name down here. So again, we can have some layer systems say, hey, I want to affect just the green biome, or I want to affect just the blue biome. And we can adjust that here, because right now you don't really know which one is which unless you're keep an eye out for the stack of biomes here. And again, remember, each of the biomes are going to only affect what they want to affect. So let's say if I were to turn this off again, go to the filters, I want, let's say, if I want to see ridge, if I want to see, where's that? Erosion flow. That up, and let's go ahead and just add sedimentation, blah, blah, blah. We're just messing around here after the fact. All right, so you'll see it's hard to tell, but these filters are only going to be applied where the red is. So if I let's go ahead and increase the sub-biome percentage. So we now have, say, 2 different islands. That's only going to affect where the two red spots are. Yes, once full masking options will be available, biomes are going to be so powerful. All right, so here's another thing I wanted to say real quick. So yes, we can't, right now, the values that we're adjusting are all procedural. Everything is procedural. And again, this biome seed, this global biome seed, we can change it however we want. But whenever we're able to hand paint these in, it's going to be awesome. And you can save those masks. If I like this red mask, I can save this as a mask and name it something to be used in some other project if I wanted to, or use this mask as a paintbrush, an alpha, like export the alpha of this red area. If I like that as a paintbrush or as a stamp, we can do that. The other thing I think that I'm going to talk to them about implementing is, you know how in the filters here, we have this effects category, or this rules category, where we can say, hey, we want this to be distributed based off of slope, or we want these effects to be affect some way. I think the distribution rules here could be applied to the sort of masking rules here if we wanted to. So say in right here, where it's percentage and blend range for the green biome, say instead of this being its own slider, it's a drop down menu box or something. And then we have we can click on the effects or distribution rules for that particular biome specifically. That way, because sometimes, these blend ranges here are really nice. Like, I love that we can adjust this, these values here. And of course, when you add filters, the filters are going to make a big difference too on where these ranges are applied, because it's a range in meters. So if you've affected the slope here in some way, it's going to go up based off, the height range. I mean, it would be nice if, say, hey, this edge, I want to affect this edge or everything that's masked here to only be where a certain slope is or a certain height range. So really be very specific with these values, these sort of distribution rules. I think that would be pretty golden in my mind. As well as importing, masks from other things would be awesome. Using height maps as masks as well. Okay. I think we've covered the majority of what we needed to talk about as far as the biomes. We've gone over each of these elements. We've understood what they all do. Grid scale, even this is pretty wild. So it's just a matter of playing around, trial and error of how these things work here. But turned out okay, I guess. Okay, so now let's go ahead and go and see how this has been applied to the terrain that we've been messing with. So I'm not going to save this. I'm just going to go ahead and click open, and let's go to the filter testing one. All right. Here's the terrain that we have been messing with. Now, before, we talked about using biomes as stamping for different things like height maps and the map tiler function. So I kind of did this preemptively in the last stream, but we've added a height map here from the map tiler source for this biome only. So this biome here, let me go ahead and click the global biome and click the biome icon here. Now, it does show that everything here is pink, which is, let me change this color to be something different. The sun is making a big change on this. Let's go to blue. Okay, the sun's making a big change on how this color is being displayed on the terrain. Okay, so right now, this biome is appearing like it's taking over the entire terrain, which it is, but it's also not. It's still the exact, if I were to hide this and click on global, you see global is now taking over the whole terrain. And if I click the second biome, you see that it's a little different, but it's mostly the same thing. And remember, that's because in the second biome, we inherited the filters, which will inherit all the filters from the global biome, or always inherit the filters of the parent biome, which are a staggering amount here. As well as the second biome, operation is set to add. So it's not going to overwrite the global biome. If I were to go ahead and select this operation to overwrite, you can see this is sort of the height map outcome of the map tiler import that we're using. But that's not what we're wanting to do. We're wanting to just add a piece of it over here. Now we could, if we wanted to, let's go to the biome selection here, select the global biome, and we could reduce the sub-biome percentage here. So how much does the sub-biome take over? So if we were to do something like this, you see that we are specifically removing anything from the sub-biome that's appearing in the pink area here. So if I were to, let's say, undo this, you can see the cliff edge that it makes. So all of this area here is geared 100% towards the parent biome. And this area back here is being added to for the sub-biome. That sub-biome, again, is this sort of clip. This is Smith Rock. Oh, no, I didn't mean to zoom in. That's terrible. This is Smith Rock in Oregon. So that we're trying to just raise this little piece up. If I were to hide this, you see, I wanted to kind of remove this sort of spiral filter that we had going on here. To set up this entire terrain in the very beginning, we used the, not spiral filter, but the swirl filter. We set up a swirl filter to give us this sort of swirl look. But I wanted to showcase how we can, some of this was just a little bit too swirly, if that makes sense. And we could get rid of that by a couple of different ways. One of the ways is what I'm doing here is by applying a biome to it and affecting that sort of area with a height map. You can do this with a stamp, or if I wanted to, I can specify a second biome. So let's go ahead and add a second biome here, make it not overwrite. So we select add, inherent filters, go to the custom base shape tab, and we will flatten this. So here's another way that we could have gone about that. The first way was we used a height map to increase that area. Well, it's the biomes now are making a big difference here. Actually, let's see where the biome is. Okay, so let's make the sub-biome percentage 100% so that the green-red here is having full control over the terrain. All right, so this is a second way we could do this. We're just going to use this sub-child biome here purely for sculpting on the main biome is. And the reason why I don't want to do that for the main biome is say it's a height map that we've imported from Map Tiler or from some other source. We don't want to affect the source of that height map. We just want to affect the secondary application for that height map. So that's why adding a second biome and then going in here and say, let's add another level of subdivision. Scroll up on the mouse wheel while holding control for changing the size of my brush. So say we want to go in here and we want to feather this out. Say we want to increase this height some. And we want to come over here and lower this some. Maybe this is too high. All right, you guys get the point. So that's one way. We could use a second biome as a way to sculpt or hand sculpt the terrain. We can even add a couple more subdivisions. Say I don't like this peak here. I want some sort of erosion fall off. I want to lower this just ever so slightly. Though me saying ever so slightly is 72 meters. All right. So that's another way. We could just sculpt this terrain based off that. Or let's delete this biome here by dragging out. And we just used, in this case, a height map to pump up this area. But let's go back to here, select the biome filter or biome viewer, and let's lower this percentage, sub-biome percentage down to about where it was before. Let's see. Oh, too much. Somewhere around here. Okay. So now say, okay, I just want that height map to affect this whitish area, but I don't like that harsh edge. Maybe you do like the harsh edge. If you like the harsh edge, then yeah, you've created a cliffside. Well, let's make that edge just a tad bit smoother. So let's go back to the blend range here. And for the, yeah, there we go. For this blend range, let's lower the bottom value and see where that gets us. All right, so that's going to blend it up into the, up a little bit. So let's go this way about it. Yeah, there we go. And we'll increase this or decrease that value. All right, so you can see here, we've now got two different biomes, but we have filtered more drastically where the other biome is. And here we go. Here's the result as to how that turned out. I think maybe now, let's see, inherited. Now, so what we've done in here is the second biome here has its own list of filters. So these filters are only going to affect, obviously, click this top range here. And these global filters here, even though the global, though, if we click on it, looks like it's affecting just this pink area or this magenta area, the global is actually, in this case, affecting the entire terrain, despite that it's showing up here. That's because in the sub-biome, we have inherit filters. If we didn't have inherit filters turned on, so let's turn it off real quick. Then you can see the global filters are only affecting where they're supposed to here, and the sub-biome filters are only affecting this area here. We don't want that. I want for this project, the inherit filters to be applied across the entire terrain. Okay. All right, so in this case, let's go ahead and do one more biome. This biome, let's say this biome here, where does it affect? It affects there. So let's go ahead for this biome, click inherit filters, click add, go to custom base shape, create, flatten. So it does nothing to the terrain except for where it's showcased. Now, this is an interesting aspect now. So my terrain over here now looks a bit different because we don't have that second biome anymore. We have the main parent biome. This is a con of adding multiple biomes. And we can talk about biome structures more in depth, especially when we want to sculpt these in or paint these in. That's going to be really more apparent of master controlling where we want that particular stamp to be applied. We could actually move this down. And that didn't, it still kept the same structure. That is quite interesting. I figured it would swap those, but didn't. But that's okay. So in this case, let's reduce the percentage of which one? This one. Let's reduce the percentage of the blue biome tab. All right. Keep going till. All right. So now let's move this range for the second biome up a tab. so that we can get some more of what that height map is back into play. I'm just moving this ever so gracefully. All right, so let's lower or increase this bottom range a tad. Okay, so we got some of that back here. Perhaps we can increase this value a little bit. If we increase the sub-biome percentage, that's okay because we are in this case still affecting all the ranges here. All right, so this blue biome here is not adding anything to the terrain except for it's creating a dilemma with the masking area. But let's go ahead and say in this particular region only, let's go ahead and hide this. Let's say for just in that region, we want to add a material. And you can see that material is like that. Let's say we want to add a sort of green color. Maybe it's a really dark green. And so see, we can just go through, distribute this on max slope here. Let's say we want to, let's do add, I'm getting ahead of myself, some Perlin noise to that. And then we will add roughness. There we go. So you can see now we have pretty much close of a similar terrain here, but we've controlled exactly where we want this particular texture to be. It's within this biome. It's not affected anywhere else. And it's just a little touch of green here at the top. So we're going to go through later on and probably polish this a little bit more. I actually quite like having not this biome here. And this setup is okay to me. All right, let's see here. Question. How hard is it to actually go to sleep if you start playing around with World Creator in the evenings? It seems like each session can go on for 10 plus hours easily. Yeah, you can definitely play around with this for a long time. It's like the ultimate world simulator. I mean, it's really something to be able to go through and just manipulate this terrain 100 different ways. And it's honestly, it's really quite fun. Let's see. I think that's there for now. We could. Now here's another aspect to keep in mind. So the inherit filters will obviously inherit the filters, but I don't believe it may have. Okay, so that inherit filters also applies to textures too, because if we were to remove this, yeah. So the textures also apply in that same sort of algorithm. So this seems pretty nice. Let's go ahead and just add, I'd like to add that a green back in there. So green, some sort of want it to be. All right, so let's add distribution based off of, let's see what we can work with here. Let's do it based off slope first. click this slope and let's range it like that. And let's say we want, let's try flow. This flow and flow smoothness. Increase the cutoff here. So actually not slope. No, yeah, let's do a slope there. All right, and now let's add roughness to it. Add some roughness. I think maybe we ought to increase this to, and then increase the range. Okay. Good enough for the idea. All right, so we've been going on for an hour now or so. So I pretty much touched on the biome system that we've talked about. We're going to go ahead and end the stream here in just a couple minutes. Quick announcement. I was going to this afternoon in a couple hours, I was going to have another stream to talk about the RD texture set, but I've been trying to work out a terrain to really make those textures shine for you. And I'm not quite finished with that yet because I've been diving into many other projects. So I'm not going to do that stream this afternoon. I may do it tomorrow or Wednesday. I'm not quite sure yet. It just depends on how work goes. But if not, I can, I'll definitely do, even if it's a dedicated video, to really highlight the RD textures, because RD textures, there's going to be 100 something textures that come free with World Creator once the beta comes out, I think. And I'm going to show you what those look like, how to use them, how we can implement them, and so on and so forth. So in regards to what we've talked about today, is there any questions that you guys have that we can cover? And again, I'll be sure to share this. I'll be sure to share this terrain with you guys. Let's see. Will World Creator allow for planets or just tile terrains? So I think the thing that's going to happen first is World Creator will be for the tiled terrains and its prime. There's going to be sort of world composition or world partitions like Unreal Engine 4 and 5. So if I wanted to add a terrain here to the left, we can add a terrain there. There's going to be a window where you can see the whole terrain and showcase which terrains you want to appear or disappear. So you can focus on a different tiled segment at a time. And what you do in one segment will affect another segment if they're, the edges overlap and whatnot. So tiled terrains are going to happen. They're still working on getting how that's going to work properly. As far as planets, I know there's been loose talk about having objects or meshes that we can bring in and applying, this isn't going to be procedural things. The mesh won't be procedural, but the filters and textures and things that you apply to that mesh would obviously be procedural. So like there is the idea that because you can apply meshes, presumably you can pump in a planetary mesh and be able to apply, shape that sphere, with stamps and filters and stuff like you would with ZBrush or sculpt like you would with ZBrush and whatnot. I don't know as far as the limitations of that. Perhaps if you've got a terrain here, which this one makes sense. If tile terrains, if you made a tile terrain here in World Creator that was like 100 kilometers by 100 kilometers or something, if you wanted to export that out so that it would then be pasted to a sphere, then it would work out right. Or perhaps say, hey, maybe there's a preset in the beginning of this. I want to do a planet. So from the very beginning, you see a sphere and then or a flat landscape or whatnot, and you just automatically know that that's going to be applied to a planet. I want to say planets are going to be available and to be able to do here. And obviously you can take any texture or height map that you export from World Creator and warp that to be on a planet. It may not be super pretty at both of the end poles of the planet, like North and South Pole, but because it may be stretched or whatnot. But I don't see why you couldn't do it. Long explanation. Tiled landscapes are going to happen. Planets are expected to happen, but they're not going to come first. Let's see. Planets as in limiting the tiles to a globus-like surface dimension. Yeah, so I think that would come down to a cool little preset in this program where you have a planet sort of shape in 2D and then you design it, or perhaps you do it in 3D too. Yeah, no problem. All right, so I think that's going to cut it for today's stream. I'll be sure to share this landscape once we've polished it a little bit more. Keep an eye on the Discord, in the World Creator Discord, on when we're going to do the showcase for RD textures. Again, I was hoping I could do it today, but it's probably going to be tomorrow or Wednesday or sometime next week, or it may just be an overall dedicated video. I'm not quite sure yet, but since I've got the textures now, I really want to make those textures shine. So instead of us just haphazardly going into it and roughing it out, we're going to do it together in a much more polished way. Okay, perfect. So thank you guys so much for joining me in this stream. I will see you next time.